But this situation definitely affects the sustainable economic development. What is your opinion? Would you elaborate on this in terms of how to have more sustainable development? This will be definitely hit by rising food and energy prices.
I think there will be definitely glitches, and I think that this is where government policy, especially on the supply side, is going to be very important, especially on the food side. I know the government is also quite keen here in Thailand to look at the agriculture sector much more deeply and to see how productivity can increase, because what has happened in many countries is productivity has increased and has sort of stabilized at some level. And so what we are looking at is a further increase. And I think that one of the biggest issues that I find in the agriculture sector, being an economist myself, is the fact that the investments in research has actually declined as agriculture research has actually declined, yes. If you look at public, and it's a global public good, and if you look at investments in agriculture research over any of the countries that you look at, including Thailand, you will see declining trends. Very little investments there. And I think that what is happening in some countries is that because of this food crisis, investments in agriculture research has actually increased.
But I guess more people and funding goes into biofuels and alternative energies, and that's competing with the human food stock. What is your comment on the balance of this kind of thing?
Well, I think that this is where every country has to, obviously with energy prices increasing, the incentives are for investing in biofuels, and of course, for example, many of these biofuel products actually compete with maize and corn and
tapioca, sugarcane.
They're on the same land. And I think that what our strategy is to make sure that they grow biofuels in areas that are not for agriculture. So, in degraded land. So you actually find in many countries, there's lots of degraded land. So use that for jatropha or other
but
products.
it wouldn't be easy to manage in zoning. You mean zoning for human food and zoning for biofuels?
Yes, you can do it. In some countries, actually, they're zoning it out and saying that this is a good agriculture land, good for rice, and then zoning it up and where there's water, etc. Because many of these biofuel products don't require that much water. So I think that they have to, because otherwise you're going to have this competing. But I think two things. One is there can be competition, but if you put in increased productivity of agriculture products, even with small plots per hectare increases, in productivity increase can also help to reduce this tension between biofuels versus food versus animal feed.
And what are your ideas about government subsidies on fuel? Like in Thailand, for example, our government has been over the past several months spending a lot of money in capping the diesel oil price, which is actually a very economic and very political fuel to say thing. And that one obviously is helped the poor of Thailand, because diesel oil is used in transportation, in the prices of necessity goods affected by this. How that kind of policy should be implemented in your opinion?
I think that first of all we have to say that it's understandable, and as you said, there is to some degree some of it does reach the poor, because a lot of the transportation of these goods end up being diesel fueled, and so the increase in diesel fuels would eventually increase the prices to the poor. So there's a sense in which this is understandable, but we like to take a more long-term view as to what should Thailand be doing in order to reduce its dependence on oil, to reduce its consumption of oil, because it's also very important for us to draw the very clear connection between oil prices and food prices, right? Agricultural prices are very closely linked to oil prices. So one way, actually, in terms of what is the policy for food prices, one way to improve food prices in the future is to reduce the usage of oil, which will reduce the pressure on the cost of agriculture. And one of the things that has proven to be very effective to reduce the consumption of oil is to actually increase the taxes on fuel. And we have there other lessons I think Jiva can add.
No, but I think that it's all about incentives, and I think that, especially as the economic monitor talks a lot about this on efficiency, fuel efficiency, and I think that it's about giving the right incentives to people to go forwards in a low carbon growth. So you're talking about taxes and increases in prices, but I also would like to extend it a little bit to this going much more for a low carbon growth. Given the fact that climate change is here with us,
Yes.
we have to minimize, and as all human beings, we have to minimize the impact and reduce the emissions, carbon emissions. So I think, so that's the tension. So the taxes are about, okay, fine, the impact on food, but at the same time, we have only one Earth. And with climate change, and if you're emitting
and all these things are linked. I think one of the things that is important for people to understand is that the high oil prices are linked to the high food prices, and the low carbon growth and the climate change also linked to the food prices, because you have increased variability of weather patterns. There's floods in the south now. The government is warning about possible droughts. All of these things are linked, so we really need to take more of a long-term view that is also a very holistic view where all these things are integrated, and try to look for a coordinated solution to all these problems, which include using less oil, emitting less carbon, investing more in research for food prices. I think that these are some of the policies that should be priority besides the short-term kind of price measures in the short term.
Yes. And about the subsidies, what are the policy risks in your opinion when one government do the subsidy? The risk on the fiscal position?
It's true that this is costing them a lot of money. One hears figures of 45 billion baht just until September. The Thai government can afford that. I think that there is no fiscal risk under the current scenario, because the debt is still relatively low, at just under 42% of GDP. But the question is, could this 42 billion baht be targeted towards better use? For example, targeted directly to these 10% of poorest households that are suffering the most, targeted towards research, towards higher productivity in agriculture. So it's also a choice that the government needs to make, that is using these resources. Where I would not be concerned about fiscal risks, but one should be perhaps concerned is that can these resources be applied to things like agricultural research?
So thank you both of you for joining our program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.